January 24th, 1961, 12:30 a.m., a B-52 bomber is flying a routine Cold War patrol over North Carolina. On board two Mark 39 hydrogen bombs. Each one is 260 times more powerful than the bomb that destroyed Hiroshima. Suddenly, the plane breaks apart in midair. Both bombs fall. One deploys its parachute and lands intact in a tree near Goldsboro. The other slams into a muddy field and buries itself 180 feet underground. The Air Force cordons off the area. They tell the public it was a routine training accident, no danger, everything's fine, move along. 52 years later in 2013, declassified documents revealed the truth. 3 of the 4 safety switches on one bomb had failed. A single low-voltage signal 1 switch. One wire was all that stood between rural North Carolina and a thermonuclear detonation. If it had gone off, the fireball would have been a mile wide, third-degree burns up to 20 miles away. Lethal fallout across Raleigh, Durham, Washington, D.C., depending on the wind, millions dead or dying. The government hid it for half a century. So what really happened that night? Why did they lie? What else have they been hiding? If this sounds like a conspiracy theory, it's not. It's documented fact. And Goldsboro wasn't a one-off. It's part of a pattern. The declassified report came from Sandia National Laboratories, obtained by journalist Eric Schlosser and published in The Guardian in 2013. The engineer who wrote it in 1969, Parker F. Jones, was explicit. We were one switch away from catastrophe. Here's what most people don't know. Between 1950 and 1980, the U.S. military had at least 32 broken arrow incidents. That's military code for accidents involving nuclear weapons. Bombs dropped from planes, warheads lost at sea, fires in weapon storage bunkers. Most were never publicly disclosed. Some are still classified. The plane crashes eventually got attention after decades of FOIA requests and investigative journalism. But there's another kind of accident, one that didn't involve a bomb falling from the sky, a reactor meltdown on U.S. soil that released more radiation than 3 Mile Island and stayed secret for decades. Let me show you how these cover-ups actually work and why it took so long for the truth to come out. Here's the playbook. I call it the nuclear secrecy system. Step 1. Classify the incident immediately under national security. Slap a secret or top secret label on every document, every memo, every radiation reading. Step 2. Control the narrative. The Atomic Energy Commission or the Department of Defense issues a press release. Minor incident, no danger to the public. Situation under control. Local papers print it verbatim, no follow-up questions. Step 3. Isolate witnesses. Workers sign non-disclosure agreements. Military personnel get reassigned to bases on the other side of the country. Anyone who talks gets threatened with prison time under the Espionage Act. Step 4. Bury or lose the evidence. Soil samples, misplaced. Health records, a convenient fire in the archive. Radiation monitoring data, shredded or locked in a vault for 50 years. Think of it like a magic trick. The government shows you the hand-labeled minor incident, while the other hand is shoving contaminated dirt, cancer statistics, and bomb components under a classified rug. By the time journalists start asking questions, the records are lost or stamped secret until everyone involved is dead. In the Goldsboro case, the Air Force didn't even recover the second bomb's uranium core. It's still buried 180 feet down in a North Carolina swamp. The government bought the land, put an easement on it that forbids digging, said nothing until 2013. One switch, still underground, hidden for 52 years. Now let's talk about the accident they erased completely. July 1959, Santa Susana Field Laboratory. It's perched in the hills above Los Angeles, Simi Valley, Canoga Park, Chatsworth, all sitting in the valleys below. The lab is home to the sodium reactor experiment, an experimental nuclear reactor designed to prove that sodium-cooled reactors are the future of clean energy. In July, something goes catastrophically wrong. A cooling system fails. Fuel rods overheat and rupture. Suzo-active gases iodine-131, Suzo-137, strontium-90 start venting into the air. The Atomic Energy Commission and the site operators know immediately, and they tell no one. Not the public, not the local governments, not even the families living 2 miles downwind. For weeks, they keep venting contaminated gas into the open air at night. When temperature inversions push the plume down into the valleys where people sleep, independent studies conducted decades later estimated the radiation release was 240 to 300 times worse than 3 Mile Island. Yet it didn't make national news for 20 years. By the 1980s, parents in Simi Valley started noticing something horrifying. Childhood leukemia, thyroid cancer, rare cancers in teenagers, brain tumors in kids who never left California. Families started comparing notes at school meetings, at church, and grocery store parking lots. The rates were off the charts compared to state averages. A 2006 epidemiological study found significantly elevated cancer rates in a 2-mile radius around the Santa Susana site. Workers at the lab, many now dead, had been exposed to radiation doses thousands of times the safe limit. Some had been told to clean up radioactive spills with paper towels and garden hoses. The government's response? Deny, delay, argue that causation is inconclusive, blame other factors, power lines, pesticides, bad luck. It took until 1989 for the meltdown to even be acknowledged publicly. 30 years of silence. It's 30 years of families burying their children and being called liars when they ask questions. In 2019, Melissa Bumstead testified before Congress. Her daughter died of a rare cancer linked to radiation exposure from Santa Susana. She said this: "They knew. They always knew. I think they let our kids die to protect their budget." So why did it take 30 years for the truth to come out? 3 reasons: Cold War optics, liability, and deliberate destruction of evidence. First, the Cold War. Admitting a reactor meltdown on U.S. soil would undermine public support for nuclear energy and hand the Soviets a propaganda victory. See, capitalism poisons its own people. The AEC couldn't let that narrative take root. Second, liability. If the Atomic Energy Commission admitted fault, it would open the door to billions of dollars in lawsuits from victims, property owners, and cleanup costs that would stretch for decades. Easier to classify, deny, and wait for people to die. Third, and this is the darkest part, document destruction. Convenient fires, misplaced files, shredded health records. In 2009, the Los Angeles Times investigated Santa Susana and found that 90% of the radiation monitoring data from the 1959 meltdown was missing or destroyed. It just gone. No backups, no copies. No one went to jail. No executives were charged. No federal officials were held accountable in the site. It still isn't fully cleaned up. As of 2024, Boeing and the Department of Energy are still arguing over who pays for remediation, while contaminated soil sits in the hills above 500,000 people. Now let's close the loop on Goldsboro, because the bombs have one more secret. In 2013, Eric Schlosser published his book, Command and Control, and obtained a declassified 1969 report written by Sandia engineer Parker F. Jones. Here's the key quote, directly from the document. One simple: dynamo technology, low voltage switch stood between the United States and a major catastrophe. The Mark 39 hydrogen bomb had a yield of 3.8 megatons. If it had detonated, the fireball would have been a mile wide. Everything within 6 miles vaporized. Third degree burns out to 20 miles. Fallout across the eastern seaboard, from North Carolina to New York, depending on wind patterns. The death toll. Estimates range from hundreds of thousands to several million, depending on weather and population density. And here's the part that should make your skin crawl. The bomb's uranium core is still underground. The military gave up trying to retrieve it in the 1960s. Too deep. It's too dangerous. So they just left it there. They bought the land, put a deed restriction on it, and walked away. One switch, still buried. And they lied about it for 52 years. So what can you do with this information? You can't declassify documents yourself. You can't force a cleanup or prosecute officials who are long dead. But you can become a lot harder to lie to. Here's what you can do tonight. How do I know if I live near a nuclear site or contaminated area? Go to nrc.gov, that's the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and search their public database of active and decommissioned nuclear facilities. Then visit ipa.gov/superfund and use their sitemap. Type in your zip code. It'll show you every contaminated site within miles of your home. It takes 3 minutes. What if I find something nearby? Join or start a local community monitoring group. Groups exist around almost every former nuclear site: Hanford in Washington, Rocky Flats in Colorado, Santa Susana in California. They do independent soil testing, FOIA requests, and press for accountability. You're not alone. How do I access declassified documents myself? Use the Freedom of Information Act. Go to FOIA.gov. It's free, it's your legal right. You can request documents from any federal agency. It takes weeks or months, and they'll redact stuff, but it works. That's how we know about Goldsboro and Santa Susana. And if you or your family lived near a nuclear site in the 50s, 60s, or 70s, especially near Santa Susana, Hanford, or the Nevada test site, talk to your doctor about thyroid and cancer screenings. Radiation exposure can take decades to show up. This is not medical advice, but it is a documented risk. Get checked. Here's your move tonight. Let's recap fast. Goldsboro, 1961, one low-voltage switch away from a megaton detonation that would have killed millions, covered up for 52 years. Santa Susana, 1959, partial meltdown, 300 times worse than 3 Mile Island. Vented radiation over Los Angeles suburbs for weeks, covered up for 30 years. Kids got cancer. Both hidden. Both declassified only after journalists and survivors fought for decades. Here's your one action tonight. Go to nrc.gov or epa.gov/superfund. Type in your zip code. See if you live near a nuclear facility or a contaminated Superfund site. Screenshot it. You deserve to know what's in your backyard. Then come back here and drop checked in the comments when you've done it. And tell me, did you find anything near you? A reactor? Weapons plant? A Superfund site? Let's map this together. And if you want to know what other Cold War secrets just got declassified, human experiments, chemical tests on civilians, mind control programs the CIA actually admitted to, that video's linked on screen next, you're going to want to see it. The government will always choose its reputation over your safety. That's not cynicism. That's pattern recognition. They'll classify the evidence, control the narrative, wait for you to forget, but you're not going to forget. You're no longer someone who takes the official story at face value. You're in the top 1% who dig, who question, who verify, who read the footnotes and the declassified memos everyone else ignores. That's not paranoia. That's citizenship. Next up, the CIA mind control experiments the government did eventually admit to MKUltra. Dosing civilians with LSD, psychiatric torture, and the victims who are still alive and still fighting for justice. Links on screen. Stay sharp. See you there.